I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is Psych Hacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is why women don't apologize. I am 40 years old, and I think I can count on one hand the number of apologies I've received from women in my life.
You and I both, Doc. Apologies are as rare as mythical creatures these days. Apparently, most women have a built-in apology avoidance mechanism that's as elusive as a unicorn. Okay, alright. Generally, people see apologizing as a form of weakness. They interpret it as losing to the person being apologized to. Some find it hard to apologize because of their sense of infallibility. They see themselves as always correct and never wrong. And it will be an uphill task to make them see that they are in the wrong. They will vehemently refuse to admit that they are wrong. The question is, why do most women not apologize even when wrong? In a video titled Why Women Don't Apologize, Understanding the Nature of the Problem, Dr. Orion gave some professional insights from a psychological perspective. Now, I want to explore the origins of this perplexing behavior from ancient tales woven within the pages of the Bible and my personal experiences as we unravel the age-old enigma of women refusing to apologize. Apologies may be scarce, but the allure of uncovering the truth and reacting to this video is something I just couldn't pass up.
And that does not mean that I've only had relationships with honest, well-behaving, high-integrity women over the past 4 decades. What it does mean is that women seem to find it very hard to apologize for bad behavior. And this is too bad for 2 reasons. In the first place, apologizing for something you did wrong is like an interpersonal slam dunk. Almost everybody will forgive you for being wrong. Not everybody will forgive you for being right, but almost everybody will forgive you for being wrong, especially if it means that it makes the other person right. And in the second place, apologies just seem to matter more to men.
So yeah, this part is pretty legit in my personal experience, and I've had my fair share of women who weren't as well behaved and they never worried about apologizing for anything. My ex-wife was notorious for flipping the script when she messed up and tried to say that I was the problem. I'll go into that later, but I do forgive the mother of my children. What they fail to understand, men do forgive women who genuinely apologize. People are willing to forgive in general. For example, in 2015, I was a moving consultant for a moving and storage company. I priced and booked a move for a retired couple moving from the Palm Springs area to Colorado. Prior to their move, the wife emailed me confirming her pickup date for her stuff, her furniture. And I responded to her email with my iPhone confirming that her stuff will be picked up on that date. Autocorrect changed the word stuff to shit, and I didn't even notice it because I failed to double check before hitting send. It was a good faith error that could be very costly and at the very least embarrassing. I later apologized for that, and I blame the infamous autocorrect, but I blame myself for not catching it too. Fortunately, they were forgiving about it and laughed it off. They thanked me for the laughter and for calling their stuff for what it actually is. Okay, jokes aside, it's better to be wrong and just say sorry than to be wrong and not even acknowledge anything at all. Do you guys know any people that are like that? They do something wrong and they never apologize. They just brush it off and continue the day or the week or the life as normal. To me, that's just straight up petty behavior. I realized that men actually forgive women for the biggest mistakes if they straight up apologize instead of making up explanations that don't even make any sense. I've always tried to be as understanding as possible, but women probably think it's easier to make an excuse than to confront the issue head on. For some reason, they genuinely avoid any confrontations. And that goes for some men too, but we're keeping with the theme of the video. Their apology avoidance mechanism kicks in or something. They think that they won't have the upper hand anymore if they ever admit to their mistake or mistakes. I don't see it that way.
And using words to solve a relationship problem is actually a very easy and inexpensive solution, all things being equal.
Women not apologizing seems to be an age-long problem traceable to ancient times. There are various examples in the Bible of women not accepting their wrongs and apologizing. A major example is Eve, the first woman God created in the Garden of Eden. In Genesis chapter 3 verse 1 through 24, we see Eve disobey God's instruction by eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. When God confronted her and her husband Adam about their wrongdoing, rather than apologizing, she shifted the blame to the serpent. Okay, the serpent did indeed deceive her, but Eve plucked the fruit herself, ate it, and gave some to her husband Adam. Adam's at fault too for not apologizing because he even blamed God for the woman he put with him that gave him the fruit of which he ate. Could you imagine pointing the finger at God to his face? Like, yo, man, that woman you gave me is the problem, so it's your fault. I find that funny, but it's just crazy how that goes. And that's Genesis chapter 3, verse 12. But as mentioned before, we're going to stick with the title and theme of Dr. Orion's video. Even if Adam has shifted the blame to her, why didn't Eve admit that she was wrong for disobeying God?
So ladies, one of the best ways to earn respect and raise your estimation in someone else's mind is to admit wrongdoing when it's appropriate. And of course, to not apologize where there was no wrongdoing and the other person just disagrees or disapproves of your actions.
Yes, that is a very valid point to throw in. Apologizing when you did nothing wrong isn't the right or healthy thing to do either. You only need to apologize if you've actually made a mistake. And apologizing doesn't mean you're just going to say sorry and move on. That's kind of insincere. Women should actually listen to their partner and see if they hurt him in any way. It will build the element of empathy in the relationship, strengthen the relationship, but that's only after you apologize sincerely, and a lot of women fail to understand the benefits of apologizing to begin with, and that's where things just go wrong.
The reason why it is so hard for women to apologize is that there seems to be a difference in what men and women consider to be the problem. From a man's perspective, the problem is some behavior for which he believes the woman to be at fault. And as a consequence of that behavior, he is now angry and upset. The behavior is the problem, and the emotional response is the consequence. And in his mind, the solution to this problem is acknowledgement of fault and behavioral change.
It's an issue that I encounter with my ex-wife all the time because we never really agreed on what should actually be counted as a mistake. For instance, I did talk about this in my other video, my marriage was a dumpster fire video. I'll put the link in description and the card at the end of this video. Check that out after watching this video if you want to. When I was a movie consultant, I had the flexibility to work from home while conducting estimates in the client's homes. However, I prefer to be in the office to make sure I get work done. It helped me to be more productive. I worked mornings and my ex worked nights just for context. She would watch a lot of Lifetime movies about the husband who's an attorney or CEO, for example, committing infidelity with the new and attractive secretary, or how the husband became more distant from his wife because he had another chick, and all those messed up romantic drama scenarios and all. The number one excuse on all those shows or films was that the man was working longer hours in the office and troubles were at home that were not being handled. So my ex, taking all that in, would stop by the office and stay for extended periods of time while I worked. It was sweet at first with the initial visit, but as she just lingered, we all knew there was something more to the visit. Things got worse when she came by and saw a cute Filipino secretary that was hired. Not by me, of course. And I wasn't complaining about it either, but man, oh man, did my ex start verbally lashing out and drinking and doing some heavy gambling while I was at work. She was living out her own made-up Lifetime movie drama, if you will, and that was hurting us financially. She did it as a way to get my attention, and she thought it would force me to be home more and spend more time with her. All it did was frustrate me, and I wasn't able to produce effectively. In her eyes, she blamed the work situation for our problems. In my eyes, she was costing us financially. She always thought that she's doing everything right, but it hurt me in a lot of ways. I imagine a lot of men can relate to this on some level, maybe not to the extent of mine, or maybe even more, who knows. But to this day, my ex never apologized for that. And in response to that, men like myself start having reactions like agitation, frustration, and annoyance. So the problem is the mistake that the woman just committed, and what comes after is simply the reaction of her not even acknowledging the problem. I forgive my ex for that. Money is replaceable. She was reacting more to emotion than logic, and in her eyes, she wasn't at fault. I was reacting to seeing all that hard-earned dough go to waste and how it was affecting home. I'm for a little fun, but let's be responsible with it. Hey, let's see what else the doc has to say.
From a woman's perspective, the problem is not the identified behavior. The problem is that the man is angry and upset.
From a woman's perspective, the man's reaction is usually a problem. I was explaining that earlier. Women tend to be more giving in to their emotions and react emotionally to other reactions. When she does something wrong based on her emotions, it's most unlikely for a woman to apologize for it. However, the woman's approach differs from the man's perspective on resolving the issue. According to Dr. Orion's statement from
The solution to this problem is acknowledgement of fault and behavioral change.
the man seeks acknowledgement of fault from the woman as a crucial step in finding a solution. For instance, let's go back to God, Adam, and Eve in the Garden of Eden in the book of Genesis. God wanted acknowledgement of sin from Eve, but Eve played the blame game instead. Comment below if you think things may have been different if Eve repented, apologized, and took blame. I believe so, and who knows how much things would have been different. Another example was Sarai, Abraham's wife. God had promised Abraham he would father a child in Genesis chapter 15 verse 4. And Sarai, being restless because she felt the prophecy was taking too long, so her being restless about her childlessness imposed her servant Hagar on her husband to sleep and get jiggy with it. So she would have had a child through her. When things escalated between her and Hagar, she blamed her husband Abraham for something that she encouraged him to do. Rather than apologizing, you can say Abraham could apologize too, but Sarah started it. That aligns with Dr. Orion's position on why women do not apologize.
The reason why it is so hard for women to apologize is that there seems to be a difference in what men and women consider to be the problem.
He states that it's hard for women to apologize because the difference in what men and women generally view as the problem. Sarai's perception of the problem was Ishmael, the illegitimate child, becoming heir with her son Isaac, the legitimate one. God's promise came through because God doesn't lie. However, Abraham saw it as a deliberate sabotage of the father and son relationship. So before we go any further, I'm an author of 4 books, links in description. Also, this video is sponsored by All American K9 Academy. I'll put the link in description too. So speaking of Isaac, Rebecca, Isaac's wife and the mother of Jacob and Esau, did something we all agreed to be wrong. She connived with her favorite son Jacob to steal Esau's blessing by deceiving Isaac, who had poor eyesight because of old age and was on his deathbed. However, there is no record of Rebecca apologizing or displaying remorse for orchestrating Jacob's cunning plan to acquire Esau's blessing. Instead, she responded by helping Jacob escape his brother's wrath. So back to Dr. Orion. Dr. Orion's solution to this problem is on point.
On the other hand, ladies, I would highly encourage you to consider apologizing when appropriate. Why? Because men respect people who take responsibility for themselves, and men very rarely receive apologies from women.
He promotes the idea of women apologizing to their male counterparts as it cultivates respect for men when a woman takes ownership of her actions and acknowledges her mistakes. Accountability may be a woman's kryptonite. Heck, accountability can be a lot of people's kryptonite. But if he can acknowledge the problem, then the solution can and will be reached with the understanding of this. Case is closed, but let's see what else the doc has to say.
And as ridiculous as that might seem to a man, there's actually some validity to this perspective. Like, in a court of law, a breach of contract by itself is generally not actionable. You have to also prove that some harm resulted as a consequence of the breach. No harm, no foul. So it's the harm, the anger and upset, that is the foul from this perspective. And in her mind, the solution to this problem is changing the way he feels. If she can succeed in modifying the man's emotional response, then on some level, that would solve the problem. And that's why you encounter the kind of interpersonal strategies that you do with women in relationships under these circumstances.
Yes, so a lot of women think that their mistake isn't something that resulted in any kind of harm. The actual harm was done by the anger and the emotions that the man is exhibiting, he's displaying. It's because you can't really see the effects of a mistake all the time, but you can surely see the effects of anger. So for the most part, women think that anger or emotions are the real problem, and that's what they need to tackle. So instead of apologizing, they find other ways to solve the problem, like changing the mood or being extra nice, just so you let go of the anger. In my ex's case, and it did work some of the time, okay, most of the time, before I got wiser about it, she bought me ribeyes, and she knows that people who know me, ribeyes are my absolute favorite. She can't cook for nothing, but when I see a ribeye, it's going down. I'm throwing on that grill, and it's just, I'm happy, man. By now, you should know that women won't apologize for something they don't see as a problem, and men will continue to see their mistake as the problem. It's a vicious cycle, and a lot of times, relationships and the love is entangled in this cycle. I'm no psychologist, but this does make sense to me. I suppose when the other parties understand where each side is coming from, perhaps that will make it smoother and easier to reach a resolution.
Rather than apologies and accountability, you typically see a number of emotional coping strategies, like trying to cheer you up, or making your favorite meal, or sending you a funny meme, or simply allowing enough time to pass for everything to blow over. All of these are strategies to reduce the man's felt experience of anger or upset. Do you understand? Women also notoriously use sex in this manner.
And that's another great point about using sex as a compensation / peace offer. So here, I'll give you guys a story. My ex and I went out with her coworkers, and she got plastered to the point where she disrespected me in front of her friends and embarrassed me. I didn't talk to her for a week, and I slept in the other room of the house we were living in at the time. She knew exactly what upsetted me, and she tried to play it off cool. You can't pull a Jamie Foxx on me and blame the alcohol. An apology would have been a great start. Days later, she snuck into the room I was sleeping in, removed her clothes, and tried to take my pants off, and I was like, oh hell no! It used to work on me before, but not this time. Your boy had to hold firm. She thought that sex is a solution and that she could use it as her own messed up language of an apology. Comment below, let me know if you can relate to this. It's not very healthy to suppress your emotions like this and just move on to sex, because that's not how to cope and deal with things in this scenario. Dr. Orion did mention that he lost respect when the woman offered sex as a form of apology. I concur, because I value the apology and correction from my ex more than sex. Piece of advice: if you made a mistake, here's a powerful tip. Apologize. If you did make a mistake, of course, don't apologize just to apologize. Not only does it show sincerity that you apologize, but it also shows that you value the relationship. But it could also strengthen your bond with the person involved by uttering these 3 simple words: I am sorry. You can distinguish yourself and potentially earn more appreciation than those who came before you. So finally, the Bible encourages us to apologize when wrong. James chapter 5 verse 16 says, confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another, that you may be healed. The effective fervent prayer of the righteous man avails much. And in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 32 shows us how to treat those who admit their wrongs and apologize. And be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. So if someone apologized, don't bash them for that. Just, forgive and accept and move on. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I love to hear your thoughts on the matter, so comment below, let me know. Thank you again for watching. Until next time.